Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Friday call. Welcome to the end of the week. Can you believe you made it through another week? Another one. It's been pretty wild. This is one of those weeks where, like, do you guys ever have a week where, like, Wednesday feels like Friday? Like, I was halfway through this week and almost 100% convinced it was Friday. I was like, how did we get to this point in the week already? But it's Friday. It's not the Matt show today. It's not the Matt show. Today's about a special guest, as it always is. I am thrilled, humbled, excited to have our guest here joining us today. I'm going to tee this up by asking our good friend Jeremy Pratt to share with us who we are going to have the privilege of spending our morning with. So, Jeremy, who are we getting the opportunity to talk to today?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We are, I'm thrilled. We have Dan O'Connor this morning. I've known Dan for 30 years now, which is almost impossible to believe because we don't look a day older than 21. And I'm only here today because 30 years ago, a stoic Marine didn't squash my head when I was relentlessly breaking his chops because I had never been around someone with so much character. And I was like, gosh, I'm like, he is like he looked like he just fell out of the Marine Corps, guide. And I was like, he must have a sense of humor somewhere in there, and I'm going to have to find it. And I went to different leaps and bounds, and he didn't kill me, and that's a blessing. But I want to talk about Dan. He was a lieutenant back then, and we also had a fella named Bubba with us, and Forrest Gump had just recently come out.
Oh
So,
boy.
you can imagine Lieutenant Dan and Bubba jokes that I was cracking. And, being 3 years old, you kind of just meet a person, you don't ask a whole lot of questions, you have some fun adventures, but Dan is an internationally recognized leader in enabling organizations of all types to see and realize new possibilities, manage complex change, build dynamic capabilities for high performance and resilience, known for elevating teams and organizations in no fail mission spaces. He brings a career of tested leadership to the most complex challenges. Dan served 22 years as an active duty Marine. Thank you for your service, bud, participating in supporting, preparing Americans through the United States globally during various operations. He's consulted on and produced security and emergency management operations for 5 Olympic Games, 4 of the largest marathons in the U.S., and a Super Bowl. This is the part that has always blown me away because, listen, I had my preconceived notions of what a Marine was, and Dan didn't speak a whole lot back then. So I was like, maybe he's just not that bright a guy. Well, he's a graduate of the Naval Postgraduate School, Harvard Kennedy School, Swedish Defense University, National Preparedness Leadership Initiative, FBI National Academy, Federal Executive Institute of the United States Marine Corps Command and Staff College. He's recognized authority both nationally and internationally in national security, homeland security, law enforcement, uh, exigent leadership. I don't even know what that is. Crisis management, emergency management, continuity of operations, and security anti-terrorism. Dan is the guy who I have relied upon as a mentor for 30 years. If you needed a book on leadership, if you needed a book on self-improvement, Dan, hey, what could I read? And he would give it to you immediately. And the best part about Dan is when you ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer. You don't have to like the answer, but he's going to give you the straight up truth, and he's going to give you the answer from his heart and the smartest answer he has. And he is hands down one of the most brilliant people I know. And I'm really psyched that he's here this morning. So thank you, Dan.
Well, thanks, Jeremy. I probably should have punched you when I had the chance.
I think so too, Dan. I'm in favor of that. If we
Life
can
isn't
make that
over yet.
happen.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly, that is what an incredible resume, Dan. It goes without saying. Thank you for all you've done, for all you've contributed. This is a ragtag motley crew here that you're looking at of the best real estate agents in the state of Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. And I use a lot of military analogies, right? In that we don't necessarily all look like what you picture when you picture a real estate agent. And I think that's probably like when you run into a bunch of Delta Force guys in the middle of the field, right? And they don't necessarily look like the high and tight crew, but this is a group of high performers who love to dive deep into what makes people tick. And I'm so fascinated by the process that people like yourself go through, how you choose the path in life that you get on, and how you identify the person that you need to become in order to get through the challenges. Now, that resume is by far one of the most impressive resumes we've ever heard. We've been doing this call for maybe 6 years. We had some really impressive characters here. So I'm so curious, Dan. Like, take me back to like the early days, like the very beginning. Like, you decide that a career of service is for you. You're going to enlist in the Marines. Um, how did that start for you? What was the compelling force behind that being the choice that you made?
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to share some perspective and point of view. With regards to your question, the why, well, there's a million whys. Um, I grew up in Long Island. I was a college baseball player. Um, had a family crisis that changed my dynamic in terms of where I needed to be. I went to school at Old Dominion University, had to come home, and things that were successful up to that point as a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old. I had plans, I had expectations, um, not necessarily delusions of grandeur, but grandeur. Right? I was going to um, go to college for a couple of years. I was going to get drafted. I was going to play for the Mets. Yeah, yada yada yada. Um, that was the expectation, but your life is formulated by what you do when faced with an alternate reality to your expectation.
Mhm.
So I had met the person I'm currently married to for 40 years, and she was a college athlete and I was a college athlete, but it wasn't going anywhere. Right. So you can continue to um, invest in the sunken costs ideology. I'll just double down. I'll work harder. I'll work harder. I'll work harder. But the ROI wasn't there. So I had to do something radically different. And my family on both sides, but at the time, somebody had always served in some branch of the armed forces pretty much since the inception of the country in some capacity. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to radically change my life, I'm not going to, easy is a relative thing. Jerry made a lot of Marine jokes. Well, muscles are required, intelligence not expected. That's for Jeremy. If I was going to do something, it was going to be difficult and it was going to be done in a manner that pushed me beyond my comfort zone. And that was a conscious choice. Now, when you make a conscious choice like that, and you're like, well, I'm going to do this. I was going to be an officer first, but I didn't finish college, so I had to enlist. So I was already older than the average age of a Marine is 19 years old. I was 20 when I enlisted. And I'd already been to college for 3.5 years. So I already had kind of a different disposition anyway. And I said, I'm doing this. I'm changing the direction of my life. I took complete ownership, and there's risks in that. There's always a risk in doing what you've always done because there's been some modicum of success. Well, what happens when it doesn't work anymore? And
You troubleshoot.
drive or be driven. So I took control as best I could. I owned the situation as best I could, and I had to take risk. And that risk was showing up on those yellow footprints in Paris Island and saying, instead of now what, so what? Okay, I'm here. What are you going to do with that? And that was the start of it.
You said you just dropped a whole bunch of really, really, really important things that It sounds like you've had this conversation before, but I want to point out a couple things that you said that I think are just monumentally important for people that are on a path toward self-improvement, toward leadership, toward number one, you said your life is formulated by what you do when faced with reality. And I love the way you phrased that, that fundamentally you are and the life you live is the product of how you deal with reality, not how you deal with the version of what you think it ought to be or what it used to be or what you want it to be, but reality. Like, I am not succeeding at what I want, and how am I going to deal with that? Or I am in this situation. The situation is the situation, and how am I going to deal with that? That is actually the essence of what makes a human being who they are, is how they deal with confronting reality, good or bad. Reality is reality. That's the thing we have no control over. And therefore, the character of a human actually comes out in how they deal with that. The way you articulated that, your life is formulated by what you do when faced with reality. I love that. You talked about you said you take complete ownership of radical change in order to get to an outcome that was different. And that drive or be driven concept, I've never heard it stated like that, but I love that. That if you aren't driving, then someone else is, and so, or some other thing is. So there must be some part of you, Dan, that operates a little differently, though, because not everybody lands at those conclusions, right? So a lot of, I would say most people are existing at the mercy of the things that happen around them. So where do you think that comes from? Well,
Oh, that's a great question. If you live a real life, you have to understand that life has friction, right? And you can't shine without friction. You can't have fire without friction. You cannot succeed without friction. So, whether you believe in the biological aspects of most of your personality is from your DNA, 30 to 40%. Where were you born in the hierarchy? Are you the first child? Are you the last child? You know, all of those pre-incident life indicators may be laid out for you unbeknownst to you. But then you have life issues. My father abandoned my brothers and I when I was 3 years old, 3, 2, and 1. We were on the verge of homelessness. We were on welfare. So so what, right? That's what was real. And you can wallow in despair or you can aspire to overcome that, right? So that those are those friction things. And it's not a reality show. It's not TV. It's not fiction. It's so what? Everybody has things. You know, you're built to be mediocre.
mm,
Life rewards compliance. So if you want a life that's beyond average and not necessarily extraordinary, but have a say in your outcomes, you're going to make people uncomfortable. And are you strong enough, wise enough, big enough, and also humble enough to recognize I'm in charge of very little in life except my response to stimuli, right? The old Viktor Frankl thing. What
yep.
happens between action and response is who you are. So, through a variety of factors, oldest son, um, given a lot of responsibility very young, had to make my way, had to make my own mistakes, suffered great opportunities of success because there was lots of um, great judgment comes from bad judgment.
Mm,
So you
mm,
make your mistakes and you make your errors and your foibles and you overcome those. And
that
then
is truth.
in that overcoming obstacles, you recognize, you know, amateurs talk tactics all the time. Well, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. Professionals will talk logistics. How do I get there? How do I resource that?
Say that
Um,
again. Amateurs talk
amateurs
tactics.
talk tactics.
Mhm.
Professionals talk logistics. Leaders talk strategy. Right? So the leader, and you're a leader of yourself, you have to envision what your future can be, you're going to professionalize that by creating a series of opportunities in life that's your profession. And you leave the tactics to itself, because when you get fixated on how you're going to do things, you miss a lot because you're too in the weeds. And if you're going to lead people, uh, you manage things, you manage expectations, you manage resources. When you start to see people as a resource, you've already lost, because
Hmm.
every one of us is unique, whether spiritually or biologically. We all exist out of, it's mathematically improbable that we exist. So why would you assume everybody wants to be like you? They don't. They want to be the best version of themselves. And whether by luck or a lot of good came from having to make those decisions as a child and a young kid and a young adult. You don't really know what right looks like, but you have an idea, and you start to accumulate behaviors that you see rewarded. And then you have to kind of go through those. And that's how you build. You want to be a character with character. I was probably pretty stoic to a 22-year-old film guy like Jeremy, who was always in everybody's way, always, always wanting to know, hey, 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 pal, hey, pal, hey, pal, you know. But he took risks too, because he had
Yeah.
no idea who we were. And we were thrust together for the Olympic torch. And when thrust together, emergences are real. It's a real thing. People rise, people fall, people interface. And clearly, Jeremy has been part of my life for, 30 years.
Yeah, he's real sticky. I know exactly what you're talking about. He's real sticky. I want to say you again, I feel like we could make like I feel like we could make a poster out of everything you've just dropped here, Dan. Like, again, and it's clear that you've spent a lifetime committing to sort of a framework of philosophy about how life works, not just not and again, we do this call every Friday, and this is exactly what we really seek to dig into is it's not about, oh, tell us your story, although we'll get to some of that, but it's really about like there's a way in which we think and operate. So if you live a real life, you have to understand that life has friction. God, that's powerful, because the friction is often what stops people or holds them back. And so what you're actually doing when you choose, well, I don't want to do that because it'll be hard, or that might not work, or I don't know how that'll work, or somebody might not like it, or what if people judge me? If you live in the friction part, you actually don't get to live a real life. You get to live a very fraudulent existence because you're not confronting what is inevitable, which is that you will face friction. That's the whole classic choose your hard, right? Like marriage is hard, divorce is hard, working out is hard, being unwell is hard. Like you choose which friction you're going to encounter. It is inevitable that you will have friction. A real life is filled with it. So, and then you go on to say, and without friction, nothing can shine. Oh, that's so true. Like you can't shine a car without creating friction. There's a saying in one of our courses that we've all here taken, or many of us, called Bold, that says no pressure, no diamonds. And the idea of it's the same concept that it is through the friction, through the challenge that comes out the inevitable um, the beauty emerges. The other thing you said that I wrote down, and I've never heard it said this way before, but God, I love it. You're built to be mediocre. A lot of people come on this call, and a lot of people come on and talk about, God's will is in you for you to be exceptional, for you to be wonderful, for you to have the capacity to be your best self. And all of that is true. But the reality is that the base model is what you walked out of the floor on with, right? We all walked out with the floor model. And the floor model is stripped down to the bones. The floor model has four wheels and a steering wheel and no power windows, no power steering, right? It's got no sound system, nothing special going on. And that's how you were built. And then it's up to you to create the upgrades, to figure out how do you become the best version of you. That's your job. But you're actually right. You're built mediocre. You start out pretty basic. And then what you deploy in life is what creates the amazing outcomes. And the vast majority of people never do it. The vast majority never engage the friction. They never go through the rehab. They never go through the rebuild. They don't invest in what it would take in order to get an upgrade on that base model. Um, I love it. Lastly, just reiterating, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics, leaders talk strategy. Holy cow, did I immediately start feeling like I could put people in buckets real quick. Like, oh, yes, and that. I see it. Very cool. Very, very cool, Dan. The overriding theme here, though, is that all of this comes from a willingness to take risk, a willingness to engage in something that you're uncomfortable with or afraid of or inherently doesn't make sense. So let's unpack for a second what we call risk and how it relates to what, could otherwise be determined as courage or bravery or the ability to say in my very uncouth way, fuck it, I'm going for it. Where does that, like you said, so what? What's that about? I mean, now you've led literally men in the military, and I'm sure that you can see a character type there. Like, what does it take to get to a point where somebody says, I'm in, like, let's go, I'm all in? What does that take?
The most important thing you can gain if you're in a position of leadership is buy-in, right? So what is buy-in? Buy-in is the commitment of somebody else beyond the superficiality of constraints. Um, if you want to be great at something and be exceptional, you don't have a lot of room to deviate. It's going to require sacrifice, choices. When you lead somebody, you're making choices potentially for someone else's life. You better understand exactly what you're asking them to do. And are you leading the life of contagion by example? Are you full of shit or are you the shit, right? To use, your phraseology. So there's so many people that fake it, that they put on their mask, their persona, and they project um, certain attributes that they think people aspire to. But really, I boil it down to I don't want to tolerate you. I want to respect you. Those words mean different things, right? If you want my trust, I have to trust you first, right? So I have to give something in each one of those dispositions. I have to respect you first. I have to trust you first. And I have to give you loyalty. Now, loyalty in 21st century America is a payout. My point of view is I'm loyal enough to tell you, you look like crap. You didn't make the right decision. I failed you, right? That's what loyalty is because you're making a qualitative commitment to somebody to tell them the unvarnished truth because I'm committed to you. So in that space, respect, trust, and loyalty, it creates that buy-in premise that you are beyond authentic. You're not being real, you are real, which means um, a lot of the leadership literature and books and culture and management stuff is, well, bring your authentic self to work. No, don't bring part of yourself. You have to be opaque. It's like there's a reason glass isn't clear in beer bottles because it destroys the beer. Right?
Mhm.
It's brown, it's green, but you learn these things over time. Is you have to have such a degree of awareness. I want to let people in as much as I can, but there's a point because what is the mission is everything. So if you're going to lead people and you're going to put people in harm's way, are you willing to lose everything that they are about to lose for you? Right. So it's a different perspective. And as you can get older, you can mature, you start to see it's very facile what people talk about in business school and what's leadership and you lead people. you manage things. When you treat people like things, you've lost them.
Hmm.
So what's the buy-in quotient? What have I done to you? Am I a character with character that I appeal to you on some level at the unconscious level that you're going to innately trust me because I'm creating a place in your life where you're willing to take risk, lose something that you may not own, risk your life, risk your livelihood on another person. That's the real challenge in all this is what am I going to do? What am I going to live? How am I going to understand that inverted triangle? The higher you get, the less privilege you have. Yeah, that's what people don't get.
Amen. Yeah, no, I just had that exact conversation yesterday with one of our team members, and I was just saying like leadership is nowhere near the reward that people think it is. That leadership is in most cases it's this deep responsibility that you feel all the time. It's not there is no like podium that you get to stand on and say like look at me, I'm the one that's brought everybody here. You are perpetually committed to other people's success. And I love that phrasing that you put around it, that there's like an opaqueness to it, because at some point, right, that as the person who is the leader, that burden can actually bring the whole company down, the whole squad, the whole, like if they're not all in and committed too. I'm super interested in Dan, in the military. You were a lieutenant. You said what, 20 years ago, and you rose to the.
Longer, yeah. I retired as a lieutenant colonel.
You retired as a lieutenant colonel. So, the military, obviously, in my estimation, and is one of the best examples of creating hierarchical leadership, right? So, like in the sense of you actually bring organization, and I know because I know humans, and I've been on this planet for 50 years, that not every lieutenant colonel was a great lieutenant colonel. Not every major, or not every, like there were there that each and every person looks to that, like what truly makes a leader is the people who follow them. And I'm really interested in learning what the leadership training looks like in the military. Like when you get to a certain degree of your leading, is it strategy? Is there a lot of human relationship? Is there a lot of dynamic around motivation? Like what does the Marine Corps spend a lot of time on? And what are some things that you took away from that training that have really stuck with you?
Great question. Respect the man, honor the rank, right? Respect the person, man, woman. There are going to be people who you affiliate with, that you aspire to be, that touch you in ways that you can't really put a point on or a finger on. It's an imperfect organization. The hierarchy works for a reason because what you're expected to ask and tell people to do. The intangible is respect. It comes back to respect, trust, and loyalty. You will go above and beyond the person who you respect and trust, but you also have a law abiding obligation to the hierarchy. Um, I can't speak for the Army, Navy, Air Force. I can make jokes about it because we all do. We all laugh at each other. Uh, Muscles are required, intelligence not expected, right? That was, um, and I chose the Marine Corps for a reason. It was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's the smallest of the four services.
Yeah.
We believe that we are the world's greatest fighting force in the history of mankind. Now, you can believe it or you can live it, and if you live it, you understand it.
Yeah.
The hierarchy doesn't really get it done. It's a very flat organization when you live it. And when you live it, you understand my entire existence is for my subordinates.
You hit a point that I actually went really deep into trying to understand the facets of the Marine Corps at one point around the concept of what you just described, Dan, which is The Marine Corps said it's the few, the proud, the Marines, right? Like that was the slogan was there's not that many of us. We are a certain way, and that's who we are, unapologetically. And I grew up with that slogan, and I remember hearing that and thinking to myself, like, that's really powerful. And in our world, we on our team, we aspire to be different, to have that same level of commitment to the cause, to our communities, to our people, that this isn't a room for everybody. How do you feel that that is lived out the way you just described it? You said that the Marines, it's lived, not it's not hierarchical, it's lived. How does
Yeah.
that
So
show up? Like where talk to like how does that show up inside of everyday activity? Because I know it, I know a lot of Marines, and yeah, they're really proud. Like there's something exceptional about that. I'm so
so
interested.
if you desire to inspire, you must perspire, right? So if you want to affect someone's life, you have to work at it. That comes back to the buy-in. The Marine Corps is not going to change for you. You're going to change for it. It's an honor to be part of this organization, and you have to earn it. It's not given. So the few, the proud, we only have two jobs in the Marine Corps, and it hasn't changed. And I've been out for a pretty long time, is to build Marines and win the nation's wars, right? So you put all the rhetoric aside. When you look at it like this, as you get older, you recognize the unique privilege afforded a leader in the Marine Corps to be granted the privilege to lead America's riches, their youth. Parents are giving their sons and daughters to a nation with an expectation that you'll return them wholesome, better, smarter, more aware, and at the same time ask them to do pretty difficult things.
Mm,
So when you look at it from that lens, we're not screwing around. This
yeah.
is no joke. So it is hard, and it's meant to be hard because you will never lead when things are optimal. You
Hmm.
will never do things when everything lines up. You see people through entire walks of life. Well, I'm just waiting for the right moment. This is the moment right now. So many people go, well, one day I'm gonna, as opposed to day one, right now. You have to make a conscious, committed choice this second to do something, take action, right? So that's part of that. Lots of people have inspiration, and they have desire. I want to be something. Well, why don't you do something first, and the be will take care of itself.
Hmm.
If you would have asked me when I first met Jeremy, would I be the chief security officer for FEMA? I would have been like, yeah, whatever. I was just trying to deal with a knucklehead on the back of a truck,
Yeah.
right? Or if you would have asked me as a Lance Corporal, would I have been a lieutenant and gone through OCS at 30? I would have said, well, I'd like to, but there's lots of challenges in that. So you want a life full of a lot of challenges, not because you desire to suffer, but you kind of want to have to suffer a little bit. It has to be part of your DNA. If you want to be something other than average and stand out and be the person counted on when things are bad, are you the person people call? And if
Yeah.
you're not, and you're good with that, that's cool.
Yeah.
But if you are going to be the person other people rely on, are you committed to their success? Are you willing to grasp failure? Are you willing to verbalize that failure and show vulnerability? And what are you doing on behalf of all of those people that are counting on you to prepare yourself, not better yourself, prepare yourself? Because
What Dan?
life is about preparation. You are constantly preparing yourself for things you cannot identify. What are you willing to do?
Dan, what is it that there's two parts to this question, which some of it is it's just intending to dig a little deeper once again. why does somebody choose the hard? Like you said, I had options and I wanted the toughest one. You said that, in order to be prepared, you have to choose to encounter failure and embrace it and be vulnerable about it. When we're built to be mediocre, and the reality is, in our industry, by the way, has the highest attrition rate of any industry on the planet. 85% of people who get a real estate license are literally out of the business, suspend their license, and give it up within 3 years. It's incredibly challenging to get momentum in this business, to get going. And everybody comes in and says, this will be easy, but it's not. And I have found that the one unique thing that makes people really succeed is that they come in prepared for it to be hard. And we spend an enormous amount of time trying to find those people, trying to figure out who are the ones that want it to be hard, because that's actually what it is. Who are the ones that wake up and enjoy the game, the fight, that play the game to win. Like that's who we want to see and be in business with. In all the years that you were in the Marines and you saw all those people that came, what do you think was the common character trait? Why did they choose hard? Especially at that early when they're enlisting, where they don't really know life yet. They're 18, 19 years old. What's the part of them that says, I want the hardest path?
Um, Life is a series of failures with blips of success, right? So if you choose the hard, it's because you've identified that in order to do something outside the realm of average, you're going to have to give something up. It's a sacrifice. So whether I was a I was a baseball player, I fail 7 out of 10 times, and I can be a millionaire,
Mm,
right? So there's again, it's part of culture, it's part of disposition, it's part of operant conditioning. It's a whole bunch of intangibles. But the bottom line is, if you want to be like everybody else, it's easy, right?
yeah.
If you want to be average, if you want to just, there's power in anonymity. The wisdom of crowds has emergent properties, but it's also intoxicating because culturally you get comfortable and comfort kills. Comfort erodes that intangible edge that gives you an opportunity. So you have to say yes a lot. And the entire institution, even within the Marine Corps, it's built to say no. Don't volunteer, don't do this, don't do that. Well, if you want to be like everybody else, just be like them. But if you want to do something different and you have the moral courage and understanding that without risk and without vulnerability, you won't grow. Get into the So it's called, from a biological perspective, it's called hormesis, right? So in the hormesis space, you want to have small doses of poison that challenge your body to build and understand resistance. And in that resistance, you become resilient. And in that resilience, you become adaptive. So when you get hit with those things, which in life are going to happen, people who dismiss friction and failure, they're lying to themselves and they set up their entire organization for failure because they're not being, honest. When you embrace it and you embrace the pain, and pain is weakness leaving the body, that's what the Marine Corps says. Pain is really communication. Pain is
Mhm.
the interface between reality and your life.
Amen.
So if you can embrace pain and understand that it's just communication and it's telling you something, and you can build a rapport with it, going, I am growing now. I don't like it. I don't have to like it. I have to get through it. Life's about movement. It's very linear. There's a beginning and an end. And what you do in the middle is completely up to you. Now,
Hmm.
you can be a perpetual victim and say, it's not fair. I didn't get the opportunities. Other people have stuff. Comparison is the thief of joy. I'm not comparing myself to you because why would I want to be like you? I want to take from you things that possibly make me different, better, unique, uh, more aware. So your awareness and your orientation is everything, because if you can anticipate things before your adversary, before your competitor, not necessarily your peers because you work together, but you have, 25 real estate companies. You're all competing with one another.
Hmm.
Somebody has to get the sale, but are you more worried about the sale? Or are you more worried about putting a family or somebody in a home? So all of those things are part of that philosophical culture. Why would I want to be like everybody else? It already sucks. I mean, you
Yeah.
see it all, I don't want to be you. I don't know you, right?
Yeah.
I and
Well,
um
I'm like, again, this is literally what I spend most of my days trying to understand strategy. And there are admittedly, as I'm sure there have been in your career, frustrating days where you recognize that you see people suffering through inaction or acceptance of mediocrity versus the simple decision of doing the thing that will move them from that state of stasis to a state of success. And again, not my version of success, the version of success that they state that they want, right? So I'm always in this state of trying to understand, how do you communicate to people that you are literally sitting on the other side of everything you say you want, and the only difference is stop suffering where you are and start suffering where you want to be. Either way, you're going to be suffering. Like there is some, but by the way, that suffering when you're winning, well, how many of, we've all played sports. Sports is hard. You leave effort and energy and you fall and you get hurt and you all of that effort and energy, but somehow we walk off the field after playing a game high-fiving and enthusiastic and excited for the suffering. Suffering is not negative when it's deployed towards something that we care about. So
well,
I'm
it's a critical point because it's quality of effort, right?
mhm,
If you put in the quality of effort and you maintain an orientation of awareness and you understand that there is such thing as luck, that's why, Annie Duke's book is an exceptional book on how to make decisions and timing. You have to wait sometimes for things to come together, but you can't wait too long.
mhm,
You can't jump into the pool without water,
mhm,
right? So you have to be highly aware and you have to be committed intellectually to all those pre-incident indicators that things may be shifting.
mhm,
You can either ride the wave or you can be consumed by it, or you can avoid it completely. The avoidance part is a decision, but too many avoidance decisions put you behind. If you ride the wave and you make critical, calculated, strategic decisions, you can stay ahead of some of the damage, metaphorically. If you always jump in first, you may be a trendsetter and a leader in terms of, well, we're always first in. Well, you usually take a lot of shots.
mhm.
So that's part of the leader and the strategy part is you can make your opportunities, but you can also identify them. And that's a different perspective than just always being go, go, go. Well, you can run into a wall, you can cut down a tree with a spoon. Yeah, you're working hard, but you're not working smart.
You can cut down a tree with a spoon. Yes, you can. It might take you 30 years, but you can do it. It doesn't make you smart. I love it. I love it. Dan, we've got 9 minutes left. So I have two important things that I want to use our last 9 minutes for. The first one is, you've been on the inside, you've been inside government institutions, you've seen all the things, talked to all the people. Um, Aliens, yes or no? Where are we at? What's come on? Just spill the beans, man. What do we got? Area
I
51, real
cannot
deal. Come on,
say
dude. Tell me what we're. Yeah, I got a smile out of them. All right, Dan. Awesome. All right, no, but really, realistically, what I want to end on is, in all the rooms you've been in with all the people that you've had the good fortune to collaborate with, to be in audience of, who's the most impressive person that you got to spend time with, and what was it about them? Who is the person that you saw and said, wow, that's a person that I like. Who's the mentor, the person that sticks with you the most when you think of those challenging and incredible moments? Again, doesn't mean it has to be somebody we know. I'm just interested in your experience of moments in time.
That's one of the hardest questions anybody's ever asked me
Oh boy.
because the person that commits themselves to you is the most inspiring person you can ever have enrich your life because they are giving their life for you.
Hmm.
There's nobody above me that aspires me to do anything else. It's always below me.
Love that.
So, 19-year-old kid named Chris, who was having a really difficult time and got in kind of trouble. You get in trouble in the Marine Corps, like anywhere else. You can make a series of wrong decisions. And call it a gift, call it, I can see talent. I can see people I can identify. I'm a scary judge of talent, right? The Al Pacino line from the movie The Recruit. I'm a scary judge of talent. This kid had so much. He just didn't know it. So he'll tell you I picked him up by his collar and put him against the wall and got his attention. I don't recall it to be that like that. But I said, if you do what I tell you to do and you commit to me, I will give you a life that you can never imagine. And he did. And he's like my son. And he is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps now, leading a Marine Corps Special Operations Unit outside protecting America's resources in the world because he believed in me enough to commit to my idea that I saw what he could be. So when people are willing to commit their lives to you, you better be up to the friggin' task.
Amen.
Because if you're not and you're full of it, you're destroying two lives. You're destroying yours and you're destroying the one that they never knew they could have because you were exploiting them for your benefit as
Mm.
opposed to putting them in positions and making decisions with them, for them, and on their behalf to push them beyond what their self conceived limitations were. He is easily the best Marine I've ever seen. He can do anything. He is fearless. He is brilliant. He's one of our nation's greatest resources. That's not because of me. It's because of him believing what I said. I mean, those kind of things. That's the burden of command, the burden of leadership is when someone commits to you. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Are you big enough to know that you cannot screw around? And are you humble enough to realize this is delicate?
Hmm.
This is fragile. And this is someone's grandfather now, someone's father, someone's husband. He has four children who admire him and look up to him. All of those things came along the path. I knew him before all of this stuff,
Hmm.
right? So when you go to his promotion and this room is full of colonels that you knew as lieutenants and captains, because the Marine Corps is very familial. I
Yeah.
knew your dad and I knew your dad and I worked with your dad. And here's this kid who is now a lieutenant colonel who you never doubted in your mind would be here, but you had to create the ladders and the parachutes and the bridges to get them there. So he's that's the only thing that matters to me is you pay it forward by investing in the youth and that's the greatest challenge to all this.
Dan, you just illustrated a thing that is the hardest thing to there's a lot of people who aspire to leadership and imagine they imagine all the wrong things as the rewards. And what you just so brilliantly articulated is what it really means and why people commit. Because for every Chris, there were probably 100 who didn't live up to their potential.
Well, many are calling, few,
Yeah. And
few.
just don't rise up and don't do the thing. And you were prepared as the leader to give it to all of them. I'm sure of it. Because what that moment where you said it was the hardest question, but also, you know, that that is the reward. That's the life well lived. Like that's the version of I choose to lead because there's a person out there who needs me. I love it.
Well, and let me just elaborate on that for a second more. Um, Jeremy's one of those people. Jeremy was a 23-year-old kid who wasn't struggling, wasn't necessarily um, burning down the world, but we built rapport,
Yeah,
that intangible relationship. And I said, hey, come on, man, you jump on the train.
yeah,
His ride is different than Chris's, which is different than Heather's, which is different than Ross's. They're all different rides, but we're all going in the same direction.
man.
Is he a better version of himself than he was yesterday?
Hmm.
Jeremy's a dad. Jeremy has 3 kids. Jeremy's overcome a lot of challenges that most people would have been buried by. So vicariously, I'm enriched by Jeremy and people like Jeremy's ability to overcome adversity, no matter how small and big, because so many people just quit.
Hmm. Well, and
It's not about the money in your pocket. It's about what have you conquered today, and are you a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday? Then what's the point of all this?
absolutely. And the real trick, right, is that to be the person that others will follow, you have to be willing to live the life that exemplifies, that shows the example of the risk taking, the reward, the friction filled experience, the overcoming adversity. Like no one follows somebody who's had it super easy, right? Like that's not who we sign up to go after. We sign up for the person that says, "Hey, I've been here before. Let me show you how we get through it. Let me
Well,
help you."
yeah, so that's a really interesting, unique American cultural phenomenon is, we pick it up by the bootstraps, we're hard workers. A lot of people are born on third base too, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
look
100%.
at me, look at me,
Yeah.
whatever. You can find value in every single person that crosses your life if you choose to.
Hmm.
You can also dismiss every single person that has crossed your life if you choose to.
Hmm.
Life is a series of choices. You can choose to be the one that does the extra work, or you can choose to chastise the people who do. It's up
Hmm.
to you.
Awesome. Dan, thank you. We have taken an hour. It has flown by. This is just one of the richest, most deep thought. Again, I feel like we could make 100 posters out of the nuggets you dropped today. Do you have 5 minutes, Dan?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
I'd love to just see if we have any comments or questions from the group. Guys, don't be shy. Dan's just given us an hour of his time. I'd love to hear from you. Anything that you took away, share it with Dan. And Dan, while people are sort of formulating their thoughts, how can we help you? Where can we show up and support you? Is there an initiative that you're driving? Is there a social media page that we can follow you on? Is there information we can share? How can we support you and show our gratitude for what you did for us today?
Um, it's really simple. Be a better version of yourself. No, no bullshit, right? Um, be a better partner, a better husband, a better father, a better wife, a better friend, a better um, a better person. There's so many opportunities to improve.
Yeah. Thank you,
That
Dan.
would bring me more joy to have knowing that someone said, I am, as opposed to I wish,
Mm,
right? Do something to be somebody. Don't be somebody to do something. I mean that's it's pretty simple for me.
hmm. Well, you made a huge impact today, Dan. So, Aaron, what are you thinking?
Oh, that last thing you just said, I wanted to write down, but I'll probably don't. But So many good things, Dan. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to say, number one, you inspired me to turn the dial up on my walk a little bit this morning. So I now did over 5,000 steps. So thank you for that. Um, because something that you stood out, you said build a rapport with pain. It eventually ends. It's just how fast will it end, right? The more rapport you build with it, the more you embrace it, the faster it comes to an end because everything does have a beginning and an end. Um, so embracing that hard. And then the probably the most powerful question you asked, in my opinion, for this room, especially for me and for just talking in our career at least, is what is your quality of effort, right? Like what I heard from that is, are you putting in mediocre effort and saying you're doing everything you can and then, complaining about the results, or like really analyzing what your quality of effort is, and then just being honest with yourself about it, and then accepting the results you get because of the quality of that effort. So, um, and I guess that also applies to your personal life too. So thank you for sharing. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff down, but those were my two things that really stood out to me.
Well, I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome takeaways, Aaron. All right, Jeremy, close us out here, buddy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dan. You are the most humble superstar I know, and I've always appreciated our friendship. And I'm getting a little emotional because that was so good. Thank you.
I got you, Jeremy.
Amazing. By the way, you said superstar, kind of a superhero, Dan. You've got it nailed, man. It's really, really impressive. Bennett, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I always love a good baseball analogy. I think that the failing 7 out of 10 times is um so related to real estate. And as a Braves fan, I think it was probably a good idea that you did not join the Mets. So just want to say that. But
But I'm
yeah,
older.
so
I would have been with the good Mets, not I
the
didn't want to fight.
86. Yeah, I was actually rooting for the Mets in 86. But anyway, what you said about the leader also being on the field, I think also relates to real estate because, Matt still is one of, if not the top salesperson on our team. He's still in the trenches with us. There's another leader, Jeff Glover, out there that's one of the top teams, one of the top training groups in the country. He's still selling real estate. So this idea that the leader is still out there doing, and so he's not leading from a tower and uh, telling giving orders to the minions. He's in the trenches, so I love the fact that the Marines like kind of espouse that, and it's obviously it's not real estate's not as physically demanding and as life and death as the Marines, but there's definitely some really really good analogies there. So I just wanted to call those things out that stood out to me in your speech there or in your interview there. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. The only thing I would say to you is, um, it's difficult to lead from the front, but it's much easier to pull than to push. You can't push a rope,
Hmm.
right? So you have so many people who sit back in the office and go do, go do, go do. They're pushing ropes.
Hmm.
When you're leading from the front and you are out there with people and you pull them, the rope tightens, it's a straight line and everybody comes.
Hmm.
So again, analogies and ways to look at things, but you can't push a rope.
Dan, thank you so much. Massive impact this morning. You can check the box. You filled a lot of buckets today. You created a lot of momentum in the world. You moved a lot of us to ask the question: Are we actually performing to be the person that we want to be? So I appreciate you very much. So thank you again, and I hope we get to meet someday. I hope I get to see you at some point. So
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. If I can do anything for you, just let me know.
I love it. Guys, it is Friday, which means you ought to have your open houses teed up. You ought to have a full packed weekend because it is a spring weekend. This is the time of year where everything is happening. Make it a great day, everybody. See you later. Bye.